Taking back Darwin Port. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian Heise here, and welcome to another episode of Heise Says. Grab your stein of coffee, because we're going to talk about Darwin Port and calls to take it back from the Chinese. So let's start off by just looking at, of course, as always, how the trend in the media, the current headlines. Now this is the Google search or Google trend data for Darwin Port, and we can see that there was a spike, last year. But look at now. It is the hot topic. It is searching for everything. I should just put Darwin Port on every video so it comes up in the search results. But it's definitely something that's, topical, shall we say. And let's look at some of the headlines. From the South China Morning Post. Australia's Darwin Port decision could threaten future Chinese investment. Well, not just Chinese investment. You've got to realize this is demonstrating a level of sovereign risk. I think we could officially evolve into a banana republic then. We could reach that next level. Let's not pick a fight over Darwin Port unless we have to, from the Australian. You think things are bad between Canberra and Beijing now? They could get much worse. 1 day ago. From the ABC, 3 days ago. China's grip on Darwin Port looks shaky as Australia grapples with regional security changes. Shaky, and we're grappling, holding on. Reclaim Darwin Port and deal with China's reaction, from the Australian 1 day ago. Nicholas Williams wrote on Wednesday that the Port of Darwin lease did not raise any national security concerns. South China Morning Post again 3 days ago. Ripping up Chinese firm's 99-year Darwin Port lease could cost Australia. From Bloomberg 2 days ago. Australia's review of Darwin Port deal is an unnecessary escalation with China. Well, perhaps, but it gets headlines. The politicians can pretend they're doing something. And it's not real work. We've got an election coming up, don't we, everyone? News.com.au. Australian port at the centre of Beijing furor 2 days ago. So let's have a look at Darwin Port, everyone. Okay, we have, and I'll bring up my white pen here so we can draw on this. You've got this here is actually the military base, the HMAS Coonawarra. Then we have the one part of the port here and another part of the port here. This is where you've got the cruise terminal, and this is where you have the commercial terminal. Here we have the channel going right down, and you can see the ports here and the commercial stuff here. There you go, where I'm assuming they've dredged it all out. I know on the Gold Coast they need to dredge it all the time. Now, what we'll do is I'm going to bring up a overlay of video here, which is just playing the Darwin Port while I read a little bit about them. So, Darwin Port is operated by Darwin Port Operations Proprietary Limited, which is part of the Landbridge Group. The Landbridge Group is a large private company based in Rizhou City of Shandong Province in China, operating businesses in China and Australia. The Darwin Port operates commercial wharf facilities at East Arm Wharf and the cruise ship terminal at Fort Hill Wharf. The Port of Darwin is strategically positioned as Australia's nearest port to Asia and the nation's northern gateway for Australasian trade. It is also a key support hub for the expanding offshore oil and gas fields in the Arafura Sea, Timor Sea, and waters off the coast of West Australia. It is the only port between Townsville and Fremantle with full access to multimodal transport services. Darwin Port provides world-class pilotage and harbour control systems and a seamless supply chain capable of handling containers and general cargo, bulk liquids, bulk materials, live exports, and heavy, large, oversized cargoers. Darwin Port also services cruise ships and naval vessels at the Fort Hill Wharf facility. The Landbridge Group plans to grow Darwin Port by developing the infrastructure to meet further customer needs. By doing so, Landbridge brings an opportunity to increase trade with Asia through the company's extensive business networks in the region. Now, Landbridge have a 99-year lease on the port. They don't own it, they're leasing it. And they've agreed to, they bought it for, my understanding was 25 times back in 2015, 25 times the previous 2 years of revenue for the port. And my understanding is that they intend to, or they're required to spend $200 million to upgrade it. So they get to run it, they get to make the money from it. okay? And the government got paid for that privilege. It was an agreement. So let's have a look. This is where the latest data from January to March 2021, this is the total trade, and this is where stuff is leaving. Sorry, this is imports. This is where imports are coming from into Darwin Port. We'll look at leaving later. And you can see the biggest one isn't actually China, everyone. But you see the stuff coming from Canada, United States, India, China, even something from Italy, the UK, Japan. And if we have a look at this bar graph, you can see number one is Malaysia with the largest tonnage. And then you have Singapore, and then the Republic of Korea. Then after that, you've got Japan, China, Thailand, and Australia is then probably, yes, then Australia and then Taiwan. Because, you know, Darwin's pretty remote. You've got to ship stuff from the rest of Australia there. If we look at this as a percentage breakdown, Malaysia is the biggest source of imports going into Darwin Port. Then Singapore and then Korea. You can see it here. And with the loose change everywhere else. Australia's only 1%. I mean, you can barely see some of these other countries that imports are coming from. But wait till you see the exports. So this is the exports from Darwin Port, where they're going. The majority of them are... What are you doing to me, chart? What are you doing to me? Are flowing to China, as you can see, and a big chunk to Indonesia as well. If we go over here, you can see, look at that. China is right up the top, then Indonesia, and then Vietnam. Belgium, which actually featured on this one here as a import destination, isn't even tracking on this other one. You can see here, and then Malaysia. Okay, so Malaysia, where so much was coming in from, we're only exporting a little bit out there. It's just the way trade is. So there you have China, 72% of it of the exports from Darwin Port are going to China. So I could understand why a Chinese logistics company wants to, well, leverage this port. Indonesia, 21%. Vietnam, 5%. India, well, it is not 0%. It's there. It's just under, I removed the decimal points, guys. It's less than 1%. Now, this is Landbridge. Okay, we'll have a look at their website. It's a private multinational company with business interests in ports, important logistics, oil and gas, real estate, tourism, manufacturing, and trade. Their vision is to develop Northern Australia as the gateway to the Asian markets, facilitating development for trade for Australian producers, businesses, and industries. In progressing our vision, we focus on investing in people and infrastructure, championing local industry, and making a positive impact in the community we operate. Their headquarters are in Brisbane, Queensland, and its holding company Landbridge Group's headquarters are in Shandong Province in China. Landbridge Group began its operations in Shandong Province in China in 1992 when Mr. Yi Cheng registered Landbridge Group's first enterprise, Heise Port Oil Company, the first local oil wholesale enterprise in Ranzong. Since then, Landbridge has continued to expand and now has business interests in port and logistics, oil, gas, real estate. Made its first overseas investment in 2014 with the acquisition of Australian-listed company Westside Corporation Proprietary Limited. Westside is a growing oil and gas explorer and producer that has been successfully exploring, developing, and operating in Queensland since 2005 and New South Wales since 2016. And the owner is Chinese billionaire Yi Cheng, 1.5 billion in net worth. He chairs the privately held Shandong Landbridge Group, which is active in petrochemicals, logistics, trade, and deep water ports. So, government-controlled giants CNOOC and the China National Petroleum are among Landbridge's business partners. Now, this is where some people are arguing that there's a potential risk or a potential conflict of interest because of the links to government-controlled giants. Now, you have to understand, what would it take? You know, maybe a honeypot incident, maybe just some incriminating photos to get leverage on anyone that is at this level. Doesn't that happen in the past? Isn't it such and such who didn't, had a special island? Wasn't that his speciality? So, he's the vice president of the Rizhou City Charity Federation and is a director at Rizhou Bank in China's Shandong province. So, let's have a look at the closest military base here. We have our naval base. Because you'll see that there's a lot of hoo-ha in the media. Clive Palmer was talking about, an airstrip in the middle of Australia that could land jets in there, and he was playing it up as a element of strategic risk. If there's a conflict with China, they could be landing the troops in the middle of Australia. Land jets in there and dominate. It's a risk. How dare we let that happen? But you've got to understand that that's for political purposes. It's to get people fired up. We're seeing it all the time in the media now. So here's the base. It's a Royal Australian Navy base located in Darwin, home to the 12th Fleet units of the Royal Australian Navy, and the commander is Darren Rushworth. And we can see an image of it here. Now, let's have a look if, say, there was a conflict and they wanted to blockade Darwin Port because of this Chinese-owned private company was operating the logistics there. We wanted to blockade it. So we would have to travel. Our ships from here all the way. They'd probably only have to blockade it here, to be honest. But let's say they have to go here to land their troops on there. The Ubers are too expensive to drive around. Okay, so they're going to send the ship there. It's about 4 nautical miles. Okay, this base has been here for a long time, a very long time. The port is relatively new, everyone. So. Oh, and it's even less if they want to get here. It's only about 1.7 nautical miles if they want to blockade the cruise ship. So I can understand why the Navy don't think it's an issue, a security issue. Remember, this is a port, everyone. This isn't a military base. It's a business. There are several other ports that are controlled by foreign companies all around Australia. Okay, they're leased out. They're these people that are investing in them, businesses that are investing in them, conglomerates that are investing in them. If you want to get a slice of the Brisbane port, buy some shares in Rio Tinto because they're part of a conglomerate that's running that. So, just for perspective, because remember, we're getting a lot of fear, and there's a cost associated with this, everyone. It's not going to be free because we've signed a contract. If we want to breach a contract, and Australia will be the country of sovereign risk. That'll be another element. And then where will investors look at? They'll look at, probably African countries where the sovereign risk may be a little bit more manageable. So dumping Darwin Port lease could cost taxpayers $500 million. And this is just a few days ago from the Fin. Taxpayers face being saddled with a near $500 million payout if a review recommends the Morrison government should tear up the 99-year lease between the Northern Territory and a private Chinese-owned company for the Port of Darwin. With the Defence Department review sparking sovereign risk warnings, the Northern Territory government said it was more than happy to cooperate with the inquiry commissioned by the Cabinet's National Security Committee. And, here we go. Taking back Darwin Port on just terms would be money well spent. So these are politicians that want to spend $500 million getting out of a contract, everyone. Think about that. What are we going to get for that $500 million? They're just going to tender the bloody thing out to another group. Do you think we have the logistics and the capabilities to do it? Our government? No, they'll get a private enterprise to come and do it. Oh no. What if there is a conflict and they'll sabotage it? You send a ship here, it'll take 10 minutes to get there. But, what wins votes? What gets people riled up, everyone? That's what I'm thinking we're seeing here. We're seeing played out. The media's playing it up so there can be a little bit of a flag waving and, $500 million of taxpayer money, who cares? So I did some polls here, everyone. I did 2 polls. Should the Australian government step in to take back the Darwin Port? And I did this a few hours ago. Let's see. I'll just update it here. What do we have? We've got 777 votes, and we've got a few more now. So 83% said yes, they should take it back. Right now it's still at 83%. 10% said no, they shouldn't, and 8% are undecided. So the majority, the strong majority, want the government to step in, tear up this contract from this organisation, and take the port back. And you realise we're going to have to pay this company out. And then there's going to be a level of risk with every other company that's done it. And it's not just Chinese companies, guys. What about American companies? What about companies from other countries, from European countries? What about if Bechtel's coming in and running a, starting up a coal mine, building it, running it for a few years? Do you want to tear that up? Let's have a look at some of the comments here. So, what Darwin faces is the same thing we complain about Victoria facing if it took Chinese money. One bailout is enough, more than enough. Let's learn the lessons and close the door on Chinese infrastructure spending. Here's the thing from Captain, that they may have the lease, but we can still evict them at any time if they say attempt to militarize any of their assets. Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Why would this logistics company militarize this base? What are they going to do? They'll probably have security guards. That'll be local guys hired there that are probably going to be, typical Australian, get them a carton and it'll all be right. I mean, you tell me what the culture's like up in Darwin, guys. Panic at this point will make us look rash and childish. The funny thing is, if they start a hot war in the Pacific China Sea, their economic wunderkind would be a dead trade. There you go. James, no, China own it. They paid for it. Well, they don't own it. They own the lease. And the government took the money. If the government starts taking things back, it sets a bad precedent. What's next? They'll take your super precious metals, your land. Well, there's an element of sovereign risk then to any foreign businesses coming to do trade in Australia. Darwin Port should never have been leased to the world's most abusive dictatorship in the first place. Well, here's the thing. If you're a citizen in China and you start a business, should that be a stain on your ability to do business? That's the question, everyone. I'm concerned of Australian islands being sold off to Chinese. I mean, most of them are, up in the Whitsundays for these, restaurant, hotels that are going under. Good luck to them if they can get them up and running. 10% comrades found a voting. I have Chinese wives. I love them. Slow-mo should never have signed off on it. It's before slow-mo. I don't think people understand the time frames. And all other property they've been allowed to be foreign owned. So some people discussing, don't want any foreign ownership. William Bright also should have a public polite conversation for 6 years with elected officials who approved and went to work for the company. Well, yeah, there is the potential for a bit of that's the issue of corruption there in these things. We're seeing this. It happens. And what else do we have? It's just a commercial lease. The government should stop, full stop. The government should not be involved. Australia should remove all of their ties to China. I think, do some people not realize how big a trade partner China is? 100%. What about the agricultural land? This is just our politicians lining their own pockets and selling Australia. And the Port of Melbourne. Well, it's not just the Port of Melbourne. It's a few ports, everyone. I mean, here's the question. Why would you start a logistics company in Australia when you just go into housing, boys? She'll be right, mate. Just flip a few houses. What are we looking at here? So, if the LNP take back the Port of Darwin, they also have to undo Cubby Station, Altilda Energy, Dairy Industry, Port of Newcastle, Kidman Station. Yes, New South Wales. There you go. So there's a lot of privatizations. I hope the Australian government has got a plan in place to deal with the Chinese fishing fleet that will come into our waters in the not-too-distant future. We'll have to see what happens there. So there you go. The poll numbers have not really changed, everyone. Now, I asked another poll as well, following on from this one. This one was selling your house. Would you mind if the government stopped you from selling your house or property to a foreigner? I mean, that's the thing. Do you want the government to not allow people to sell to a foreigner? Everyone. And I'll just refresh this one as well. So 36% said yes out of 571 votes. 51% said no, and 13% said undecided. Remember, for taking the port back, we had 83%. A larger sample, but still 83%. Here we've got 36% said yep, they're happy to not be allowed to sell their house. Everyone. 51% said no. Well, let's have a look at what some of the people are saying here. So I don't want the government to affect any of my decisions, Gerson Rod said. Ross B., who has actually received the deed after paying off their mortgages? Mortgages are securities fraud. You can get it, mate. You need to just put the paperwork in. No, but with conditions. Australian for tax purposes and holding residency, I can forgive. Must forgive. My wife is a foreign national and part title holder on her home. I can understand there are some valid reasons for not giving up your nationality. I think it's just a pain. I'm trying to convince my mother to become Australian, but she can't be bothered. It's too much paperwork. Less government, not more, from Christoph. I should be able to purchase properties in other countries if I wish. So if I'd be a hypocrite if I wouldn't allow it here. A bit late for that to happen. Celtic Cook. The Chinese have their own centralized economy within our own. The Australian government should make the playing field even, either by banning their exclusive nepotistic system, WeChat, or facilitating an exclusive system of our own. Well, I'd say you'd have that's just in-group preference, mate. You're going to have that with any culture. Okay, that exists in any group here in Australia. But in the end, when it comes down to money, that can suddenly disappear real quick if you get a cheaper deal. So, Aussie capitalist. Only Australians should be able to own land in this country. Also, if you receive welfare, you should lose your right to vote. So Aussie capitalist is pretty tough there with his suggestions. And Nicholas, especially considering a percentage of homes are left unoccupied. Critical with homes. Foreigners should not be allowed to buy, period. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people here that are against foreigners buying. Seems like there's too much government. Should be an Aussie to buy an Aussie home. Sold to a foreigner or sold to a person with ties to human rights violating organizations, government structures that seems to direct enemy to our country. Yeah, well, this is the thing. Can you do those checks? Do you want the government's checking all of that? And Dax is going, looks like you've got a lot of interventionist followers. Well, we have a mix of opinions on this channel. That makes it more interesting. So, I mean, there you go, everyone. There we go. 36% of people are happy with the government stopping you from selling to foreigners. What do you reckon? It's gone down. We'll see. Now, the solutions, everyone. There's a few things I want to talk about here. The first is don't fall for the media hype. I get the real feeling that this is all being done for the election that we've got going on to give the incumbents something to wave the flag about. If the military isn't worried, should we? If they're not worried, should we be worried? And lots of foreign companies invest all over the world. Do we want Australia to have a reputation of having such a level of sovereign risk that it removes investment from our country? Because that creates jobs and opportunities, everyone. And we want competition. Do you want the government to just go Australia first, but not get the best value of our money? Because remember, whenever they suck money out of us, that's taxation. Do you want inefficiencies or greater efficiencies? Do you want competition and the best price or not? And is China really, we need to think back historically. I want to draw your attention to this book. Don't forget the real threat on the wharfs. Australia's Secret War by Hal Kolbach. Between 39 and 45, virtually every major Australian warship, including at different times its entire force of cruisers, was targeted by strikes, go-slows, and sabotage. Planned rescue missions for Australian prisoners of war in Borneo were abandoned because wharf strikes left rescuers without heavy weapons. Officers had to restrain Australian and American troops from killing striking trade unionists. So you've got to remember, there's another side to the wharfs. And maybe there's a reason why our government is outsourcing the logistics and management of these things. Do we want to go back to the unionists controlling it too much? What would be the real threat in a war? A logistics company from China that controls a port that's used for commercial shipping, 4 nautical miles from a naval base where one ship could park there and get control of it? Or the left-leaning unionists that... There's more evidence for this. There's more evidence for this than some of the woke ideology that's being pushed on our schools about Indigenous Australians. There's more records, more paperwork, more personal accounts for this than, well, what they're trying to change our whole agenda. Maybe this should be taught in Australia. What do you think? So, yeah, we need to remember that, everyone. What do you reckon, guys? Do you think it's all a bit blown up? Do you think it's some hype for some political flag waving? Or do you think it's something that people really should be worried about? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below. Thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can sign up for SelfWealth or Stake, where if you go for Stake and you fund your account, we each get a free share. If you sign up for SelfWealth, we'll each receive 5 free share trades. You can also use our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. Buy a merch from HeiseSays. Use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.